Madam Speaker, after 9 years, it's clear that Canadian families, that this NDP Liberal government is not worth the cost. Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. Rent and mortgages have doubled, and groceries have doubled. And now the summer family road trip that so many look forward to is coming out of reach. In fact, families from my riding who look forward to going to Jasper every summer are having to cancel this trip because of this NDP Liberals' carbon tax. That's why Conservatives are calling on this NDP Liberal government to give Canadians a break this summer. By axing the carbon tax and all other fuel taxes, it will save Alberta families and all Canadian families hundreds of dollars. Why won't this NDP Liberal government give Canadians a break?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Madam Speaker, let me talk more about that road trip. As I travelled through the mountains, Rockies, I couldn't see them. You know why? Because of the thick smoke coming from wildfires. Could only see about 2 cars ahead of me. We're fighting to save the family road trip, to make sure that Canadians get to experience this beautiful country. What are the Conservatives doing? They're letting the planet burn.
The Honourable Member Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, yesterday the Liberal Health Minister and that Liberal over there showed Canadians just how out of touch these Liberals are with the lives of everyday Canadians. Apparently, any family vacation that isn't using a bicycle needs to be cancelled because it's destroying the planet. Conservatives are calling on this NDP Liberal government to axe their carbon tax this summer to give Canadians a break so they can enjoy a summer vacation. Unlike these out-of-touch Liberals, Conservatives want our children to explore our great country. Why are these Liberals telling them to stay at home instead and just look at their phones?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
What happened yesterday in this House is that the Health Minister exposed the Conservatives. The Conservatives had offered up what they called hundreds and hundreds of dollars in savings. But the Health Minister was describing what you would have to do to access these savings that the Conservatives were claiming. 38,000 kilometers in an automobile locked up with your children non-stop would be the requirement in order to derive the savings the Conservatives were claiming. They should be ashamed of themselves. It's misinformation, Madam Speaker.
You know, we weren't doing too bad. I just want to remind members to please keep their thoughts to themselves until they're being recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Member for Saskatoon-Grasswood.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After 9 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. Instead of offering tax release, this government increased the carbon tax by another 23%. Conservatives are asking this Prime Minister to immediately axe gas taxes. That would save a Saskatchewan family $860 this summer alone. Will the Prime Minister vote with us on this side of the House on a common-sense Conservative motion so Canadians can afford a summer trip?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing Infrastructure.
Like some others, Madam Speaker, their math is off. The reality is that Canadians benefit. 8 out of 10 Canadians end up better off as a result of the rebate where it applies in the various provinces, Madam Speaker. He talks about taxes, though. Funny, I heard an interview where the Leader of the Opposition told a journalist from the National Post that bakers bake bread and Conservatives cut taxes. It's not exactly true. This government has voted, has put in place measures to cut taxes for the middle class, to cut taxes for small businesses. They voted against that every single time.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon-Grasswood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I spy with my little eye a government that wants to ruin family summer holidays. Yes, do you remember playing that game while traveling through this beautiful country? Sure you do. We all do. But yet yesterday, the Liberal Health Minister describes this family road trip as a punishment. But for all average Canadians, it's quality time. Will this Prime Minister show some compassion and vote for us on Monday so Canadians can afford a summer road trip?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, the Conservatives stood in this House and promised Canadians sunshine and flowers and hundreds of dollars in savings. If only the Liberals would agree to their crazy proposal. What we found out is that you'd have to drive back and forth to Mexico several times in order to save the money that they claimed. What happens, Madam Speaker, when you do that is families are locked in cars and they can't stop and all of that. These things that that the Conservatives come up with, Madam Speaker, are just crazy.
Order, order. I think if other members want to contribute, they should wait until they're being recognized. The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
After 9 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost. On Monday, this House will vote for our common-sense Conservative motion to save Canadians 35 cents per litre on gas until Labour Day by axing the carbon tax, the federal fuel tax, and GST on gasoline and diesel. Families really need a break. This tax holiday will save the typical Canadian family $670 this summer. So will the Prime Minister vote with us so Canadians can afford a simple summer road trip, or will he keep Canadians home this summer?
Great question.
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, you know, on the other side of the benches, they just don't do the math. Since this government has come into power, Madam Speaker, things like the CCB, the Canada Child Benefit, have lifted over 450,000 children out of poverty so that they can have gymnastic classes, so they can go on that summer road trip. Madam Speaker, also $10 a day childcare. We're saving families thousands of dollars. Rather than 35 cents on the dollar, why don't they invest in families?
The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
These Liberals are becoming more unhinged and out of touch. And there's the perfect example of the Liberals' socialist agenda, where they tax people to oblivion, and then they look at what they can give back a little bit that is actually your own money. Now, Canadians can't even afford to feed themselves. They can't afford to visit loved ones. They can't afford to save for their future, certainly. Taxes keep going up, and the carbon tax just went up 23%. Give people a break. Give people a tax break. Will the Liberals vote for our common sense bill to give families a tax break and axe all federal fuel taxes this summer, or will they just keep Canadians at home?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, let me remind that member of her record. In the last election, she went around Kelowna Lake Country telling everyone, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put a price on pollution. Now she's coming here and flip-flopping, saying, oh, I must have been mistaken, Madam Speaker. I must have been mistaken. I really didn't do that. It's really selective amnesia on our part. That member has also voted against every single tax relief measure that this government has put forward in this House that favors the middle class and asks a little more of those able to pay.
That is